This episode is brought to you by Polestar. There's only one true way to experience the all-electric luxury SUV Polestar 3, and that's to take a test drive. It can go from 0 to 60 in as little as 4.8 seconds with the dynamic handling of a sports car. But to truly understand how it commands the road, you need to be behind the wheel. Up to 350 miles of range, the 3D surround sound system by Bowers & Wilkins. It's all something you have to experience to believe. So book your test drive for Polestar 3 today at polestar.com.
She's made up her mind to live pretty smart. Learn to budget responsibly right from the start. She spends a little less and puts more into savings. Keeps her blood pressure low and credit score raises. She's cutting debt right out of her life. She tracks her cash flow on a spreadsheet at night.
Boring money moves make kinda lame songs, but they sound pretty sweet to your wallet. PNC Bank, brilliantly boring since 1865.
Hello, and thank you for listening to The History of World War II podcast, episode 550, The Second Battle of El Alamein. Last time, the Second Battle of El Alamein had gotten underway late on October 23rd. The First Battle of El Alamein had checked Rommel's desperate advance to Alexandria, but this battle would, hopefully, see him and his leave Egyptian soil forever. Yet, as Monty wanted to make his main attack counterintuitively in the north versus doing an end run around the southern end of the enemy's line, which Rommel had done with some success several times, he needed a bit of sleight of hand to increase his chances with this risky attack. Thus, Operation Bertram was born. In a nutshell, a fake water pipeline was being built near the southern end to supply the many tank crews that would be there in the south, as Monty was clearly building up his forces there. But the pipeline was fake, and the tanks were dummy tanks of canvas. The real tanks, well, most of them, were in the north, but under canvas covers to make them look like trucks. So Monty would get his initial chance to surprise the Axis forces. See episode 486 for more detail. But Rommel's men would be ready, up and down the line, as we're about to see. Why? Because they're Rommel's men. So, at 9:40 p.m. on October 23rd, the 457 guns of 30th Corps in the north, or the British right flank, commenced firing. Though this particular shelling would go on for just over 5 hours, only the first 15 minutes was targeting Axis artillery. After that, which also included air bombing attacks of these same targets, the Allied guns next started targeting the Axis lines right in front of 30th Corps. This went on for 7 minutes, and only then were the barrels lifted to fire further afield. From here, various guns would fire at the expected lanes through German minefields the infantry and engineers were expected to clear. Of the 2 lanes Monty wanted cleared in the north, each containing 3 smaller lanes, the first one was practically due west, and it would aim for Kidney Ridge, named after its shape. The second lane traveled more to the southwest, aimed at the northern edge of Miteria Ridge. On came the 9th Australian, 51st Highland, and 1st South African Divisions, each with their 2 1st Brigades in front of them, with the 3rd behind, and behind them were tanks. These infantry units had the support of the 23rd Tank Brigade, while the 2nd New Zealand Division had the entire 9th Armored Brigade behind it. Fortunately, between the shelling, bombing, but most importantly, Operation Bertram, the Axis forces on the left, Allied right, were caught off guard. The defending outposts were quickly overrun. Soon the Allied spearheads made contact with the main Axis line. From here, the Axis resistance varied from place to place. Still, the Olaxic line, the goal of the 1st Infantry to be completed that night, the line itself ran along the western side of the Miteria Ridge to the northwest towards a point just to the north of Kidney Ridge, was reached by some of the infantry. But then Axis fighting intensified, forcing some of the leading companies back who had touched the Olaxic line. Like the 51st Highland Division, its leading companies were soon taking heavy casualties. Thus, by sunup of October 24th, they found themselves pushed further back from the line. As for the 2nd New Zealand and the 1st South African divisions, more than not of their objectives were met. Still, now those on the line were pinned down between the heavy German artillery and the mines around them. They weren't going anywhere. As there was a timetable to keep to, back at 2 a.m. on October 24th, the 2 armored divisions of 10th Corps started moving forward. Their objective was the Pearson line, further west than the Oaxac line, which ran, again north to south, and was west of Kidney Ridge. The tanks of the 10th Corps, under Lieutenant General Lumsden, were to have been at that line by dawn of the 24th, using the lanes cleared for them. If this could be achieved, not only would the Axis forces be less likely to launch a serious counterattack, as they would have trouble in their own midst, but having Allied tanks at this location would also signal the switch from a general infantry-led attack to one of armor. As Monty explained to his men before the battle, this attack was to go off in 3 phases: the break-in, happening now, the dogfight, in where various Axis divisions were to be mauled, and finally, the breakout. So, reaching the Pearson line would be the moment that 8th Army went from the break-in to the dogfight, namely, the beginning of the end for the enemy. But the break-in was turning out to be harder than expected. The main reason for the delay was the clearing of lanes through the various minefields. Monty only had so many Scorpion flail tanks, the armored vehicles with heavy chains mounted on a rotating rotor, which whipped the sands in front of the vehicle, purposefully setting off the mines. And these started to break down quickly. Thus, it was back to infantrymen stabbing the sand with their bayonets while being shot at. This, of course, took time, and most of the 6 lanes planned for were not finished by the time the armor caught up to the infantry. In fact, only 1 lane in the far north, where the 1st Armored Division was designated to go to, was ready when the tanks showed up, as opposed to the 0 lanes being created near Mitaria Ridge, as the men were stuck on the ridge, unable to come down its western side, which would have opened them up to intense Axis artillery fire. Meanwhile, to the south, Lieutenant General Horrocks' 13th Corps of the 7th Armored and 44th Infantry Divisions, with a Free French Brigade, were to make a feint. If all went well there, the 21st Panzer Division and the Ariete Division opposite them would be tied down and thus unable to help against the main attack in the north. But the attack here also had problems. The minefields were deeper than thought, and while the infantry tried to clear them, they came under heavy fire. By the morning of October 24th, though a path had been made through the first line of minefields, the second was still being worked on. And Rommel, the clever desert fox, had randomly scattered mines in between these 2 lines, which caused more death and delay for the Allies. And if it had gone very well for the Allies, Monty had a plan for the 22nd and 4th Light Armored Brigades of the southern attack to traverse the cleared paths and then turn north, thus blocking the Axis from retreating. In fact, this was prematurely tried, but when the 22nd Armored Brigades tried to pass through, they were mauled by German guns. At least 31 British tanks were no longer operational. Thus, there would be no closing of the door behind the Axis army, but at least their forces in the south were engaged. Hopefully, that would tie them down, and that would be enough. As for the man now in command of the Axis forces, General Wilhelm von Thoma, though he was out of his depth, for him, the cavalry was coming, in the form of Rommel. The Desert Fox just had to make a stop first, at the Commando Supremo's office, to ask for more fuel and ammunition.
Hey business owners, we know you know the importance of maximizing every dollar. With the Delta SkyMiles Reserve Business American Express card, you can make your expenses work just as hard as you. From afternoon coffee runs to stocking office supplies and even team dinners, you can earn miles on all your business expenses. Plus, you can earn 110,000 bonus miles for a limited time through July 16th. The Delta SkyMiles Reserve Business Card. If you travel, you know. Minimum spending requirements and terms apply. Offer ends 7/16/25.
Meanwhile, back to the north, now that it was clear to the Germans that this was the main attack here, the advancements of the enemy in the far north had to be checked. So 15th Panzer's commander, General von Warst, ordered an attack. This worked in a limited way, and by 9 a.m. of the 24th, the holes in the far north and on the northern end of Mitteria Ridge were closed. By now, both sides were exhausted, but spent the rest of the day focused on the Axis minefields. The Allies tried to clear paths. The Axis shot at anyone trying to do the same. However, there was one note of worry for the Germans. By this second battle of El Alamein, the Germans were quite comfortable firing long range at British tanks, say 2 kilometers, with minimal risk of response from those enemy tanks. But this day was different. When the Germans, though winning this local contest of stopping the British attack, started taking out British tanks, soon some of theirs were being hit as well, now smoking hulks of metal. Using field glasses, the Germans got a view of the American Sherman medium tank with its 75mm gun. Again, the Allies were checked in the north, but it was clear to the Germans, it certainly would be to Rommel when he arrived the next day, this Battle of El Alamein was becoming one of attrition, something the Axis could not win, nor could afford to lose. Though there was one bright spot for the Germans. At 10 p.m. that night, Gatehouse's 10th Armored Division was hit by a German air attack. Trucks and a few tanks started to explode. Also, the 9th and 24th Brigades were hit when they were trying to assemble. This would cause a delay for their advancement as well. Thus, October 24th passed, with the 8th Army behind schedule, but still holding the initiative, if for no other reason, their number of men and tanks. Clearly, again, the timetable of the attack was thrown off. More than that, seriously delayed, giving the Axis a chance to launch their own attack, as 15th Panzer's attack that morning of the 24th could attest to. No, as the early morning hours of the 25th came on, the various British commanders needed something to change. But for that to happen, they had to get the permission of Monty. Monty was roused from his sleep around 3 a.m., now October 25th, and the meeting started soon after. And this meeting started bad, and it only got worse. 30th Corps Commander General Leese and General de Guigand, Monty's Chief of Staff, went to Monty in his caravan. 10th Corps Commander Lumsden was requesting to pull back his armor to give the infantry more time to finish the lanes. General Gatehouse's message of the 10th Armored Division, the most experienced British armor general, said that even if the tanks had gotten past the minefield just south of Mitteria Ridge, German anti-tank fire would be waiting for them. But Monty did not want to change the plan. The most he would do was compromise. This was partly due to Monty receiving incorrect or over-optimistic information, like that the 9th Armored Brigade was already through the minefield and heading to the southwest, or that the 24th Brigade had also already passed through and should be reaching the piercing line by morning. And this incorrect information began a series of catastrophic events for the Allies. The tank brigades went forward, followed by the other units because Monty said so, only to be stopped in their tracks by German artillery and tank fire. As the Allies were now bunched up, the Germans spent the last few hours of dark that morning of October 25th taking out trucks, smaller tanks, and Shermans. One regiment lost all but 15 of their tanks before retreating back behind Mitteria Ridge, with other units doing the same. Worse for Monty, by 7 a.m. of October 25th, The headquarters of the 5th Panzer Division had found the Allied plans of attack, either by capturing retreating armored regiments or captured infantry. And now the Germans knew about the Oaxac Line, the Pearson Line, and worst of all, Operation Skinflint, which called for Lieutenant General Lee's 10th Corps to get further west of Kidney Ridge, which would put them behind the German 15th Panzer and the Italian Littorio Division. This would have them behind the divisions that were acting as reserve units at the center of the Axis battle line. And now that they knew of the British plans, 15th Panzer ordered its units to stand fast, to bring up their anti-tank crews to be followed by their panzers. But not everything went well for the Axis. At the same time, news was reaching the 15th Panzer that another Italian battalion had been overrun on Mitteria Ridge. Thus, the last reserves that General Thoma had were sent to plug the hole on the ridge. But more than that, General von Verst knew he needed to retake the initiative, thus denying the enemy any chance to implement their attack plan. The 15th Panzer headed out to take on the 1st and 10th Armored Divisions. Yet those very same British tanks were also on their way. Thus, both sides were rushing towards each other. The 2nd Armored Brigade of the 1st Armored Division headed out at dawn on the 25th, but soon was brought up short by anti-tank fire. 6 Shermans were quickly destroyed. But sending a chill down the Panzer crew's spine, a Sherman further back of the 9th Lancers hit a Panzer Mark IV from 2.4 miles or 4 kilometers away. It seems that battlefields were becoming smaller every day. The Allied tank's goal, again, was the Pearson Line, but they were still a kilometer short. But soon the 2nd Armored Brigade that was trapped had the help of the 7th Motor Rifle Brigade, which is when they were both set upon by the 15th Panzer Division's battle group, supported by tanks from the Littorio Division. Fortunately for the Allied forces now under attack, one of the British infantry units set up their 6-pounder anti-tank gun and started firing. Though it took time, enough accurate shots by them were taken to halt the Axis attack. Though the Germans and Italians tried again later that day, they were again stopped by Allied anti-tank fire. 2 items of note about this local battle. 1, about 25 Axis tanks were destroyed in the process, and 2, the Allied units here did not retreat afterward. They settled in and began digging trenches. They had the Monty spirit. Whatever territory we take, we keep.
KFC presents a story about the pursuit of flavor. When Colonel Sanders learned there was no such thing as a free lunch, he went to the kitchen and made one to prove people wrong. That's why Rewards members can get a free bucket on us. 8 pieces of the Colonel's classic fried chicken or juicy original recipe tenders. The Colonel lived so we could chicken. Get a free bucket on us when you spend $15 in the KFC app.
Only available on KFC.com or in the app for participating stores through KFC Rewards account with minimum $15 online purchase before taxes, tips, and fees.
Monty himself, though, was not happy with the results of the 25th, though there were some positive things to point to. Though no tanks had reached the Pearson Line yet, the Oaxac Line was pretty much Allied controlled at this point, thus negating much of the Axis minefields, as long as one was cautious. Back to the bad news, General Bernard Freyberg, commander of the 2nd New Zealand Division, told Monty his units could not proceed up and over the Mitteria Ridge. German artillery had them dead to rights. If they charged forward, they could easily lose hundreds of tanks. If they tried to pull back and leave the protection of the ridge, death would surely visit many of his men. Of course, none of this would have been an issue if the tanks had reached the Pearson Line on schedule, thus forcing all Axis units to stay behind it. But as we have seen, that did not happen. To his credit, Monty changed his attack plan. It was not working as is, so instead of the New Zealanders pushing ahead on a suicidal charge, accomplishing nothing, his main push would now come at the far north. Leaving the New Zealanders in place, now acting as a safeguard, 2 armored divisions of 10th Corps were to swing north and make for the bridgehead created by the infantry divisions there, namely the 9th Australian and 51st Highlanders. Indeed, the 9th Australian was now told to drive for the coast, which would confuse the enemy, but also stretch out the Axis defenders as prudence demanded that they follow the Australians. This surprise and a use of superior numbers should just do the trick. Overwhelm the enemy on one end of the line and watch the rest unravel. And yet, on that same day, October 25th, the sickly Rommel was now in the Commando Supremo's office, again asking for more fuel and ammunition. From there, the Desert Fox took another flight south to the desert that he needed to dominate. As Rommel was about to see as he landed in the area that afternoon, the Allies' bombing of Axis airfields and supplies was telling. But first, the good news. He announced to his entire army the Panzer Army Africa was now the German-Italian Panzer Army. Thank you. Now to the bad news. The Italian Trento Division, just north of Miteria Ridge, which had been attacked by the 2nd New Zealand and the 1st South African Divisions, had lost half of its infantry and most of its artillery. Just north of the Trento, so on its left, the German 164th Light Division was down to 2 battalions. Just behind the Trento Division, the 15th Panzer and Littorio Divisions, which had stopped the Allied tanks from advancing to Kidney Ridge, but were themselves stopped, were now bled white. The 15th Panzer was down to 31 tanks. As for the Axis infantry, they were already on half rations, and overall, there was only 3 days' worth of fuel. The question now was, did the Desert Fox have one last trick up his sleeve? Greetings, everyone, from Central Virginia. So I'd just like to thank the latest members and those who have donated. Let's see here. As far as the latest members who get anywhere from 3 to 4 extra episodes a month, I'm almost finished with the Battle of the Atlantic, and then we're going to do Axis spies in the U.S. Let's see here. I can tell you who's not a spy. The latest members. God, that was cheesy. Noah Davis, who is from my birth state, South Carolina. Noah, thank you very much for supporting the show. Enjoy the membership episodes. James Maloney from New Jersey. Thank you very much, James. Let's see, as far as those who have donated, let's see here. Ben Rudkin from, I hope I get this right, Lightwater, Surrey, UK. I wasn't sure if Lightwater was a part of your name. Anyway, Ben, I apologize. And lastly, as far as donations, Robin Hape from Bozeman, Montana. And these, like the membership, are greatly appreciated. So again, thank you one and all. So yeah, we'll see what happens next time with the next part of the Battle of El Alamein. Yes, it started a little rocky, but one, they were able to overcome some of it. Two, the Sherman tanks are certainly helping the tenacity of the soldiers, and Monty willing to go, okay, that didn't work, so let's switch it up here. So again, it's starting to come together. And again, you can say all you want about Monty, but Rommel's sick. He doesn't have enough fuel. He doesn't have enough food. There's no more reserve forces. He had to use the last one on the ridge. I mean, he just doesn't have what he needs. But that's how war is, right? You deny your enemy the resources, and then you attack them with everything you have. And even though it's taken a couple of years, that's now what they're doing in North Africa, which is going to set up the whole Italian campaign. So we're getting there. So I will see you later on this week with the next episode. Take care, everyone.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/kidsandfamily. Just go to Indeed.com/kidsandfamily right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Hello, this is Matt from the Explorers Podcast. I want to invite you to join me on the voyages and journeys of the most famous explorers in the history of the world. These are the thrilling and captivating stories of Magellan, Shackleton, Lewis and Clark, and so many other famous and not so famous adventurers from throughout history. Go to explorerspodcast.com or just look us up on your podcast app. That's the Explorers Podcast.